Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Twin Survivor Toolkit series. My name is Lisa. I am a therapist, coach, and supervisor, and also a fellow twin survivor. And I've created these online courses for other twin survivors to support you on your healing journey. The chance for you to do something in your own time, at your own pace, and also to reach out should you need some support along the way. This is part 2, and it is all about how twin survivors or multiple survivors can thrive in relationships and the world around us. If you have joined me because you have done Twin Survivor Toolkit part 1, I'd really like to welcome you back and thank you for taking the pause between part 1 and part 2. It can be so important to give ourselves space to integrate. For those of you that are here and haven't taken part 1, I really encourage you to dive into part 1 first. Part 1 is all about welcoming you into a whole and healthy relationship with you. And this can be so vital to tend to first, before we then explore how we can tend to the relationships and the world around us. So this is what the Toolkit Part 2 is all about, where we tend to how we can actually begin to give ourselves permission to thrive in relationships, not only with other people, but also with the world around us. Part 2 will come with 5 recordings. Each day includes a recording of about 20 to 30 minutes long. And also each day will come with a reflection workbook or a reflection sheet for that day that you can complete in your own time, in your own pace, in your own space. And each day offers you the opportunity to reach out for support as well. A lot of the times we want to just be able to do something on our own and process it in our own time, in our own space. And I completely welcome that. That's why I created these toolkits. But at the same time, sometimes we can feel left stuck on something and just need to be able to share about it or talk it out loud with someone who understands where we're coming from. So I feel it's so important to give you the opportunity to reach out for support should you need it. With that being said, I would love to welcome you to part 2 of the Twin Survivor Toolkit. And I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for working on your own journey or tending to your own healing journey. Because being a womb twin survivor can sometimes feel like quite an unknown thing. Not a lot of people know about it just yet. And so as we tend to our healing journey, so we encourage the other twin survivors or multiple survivors around us on their healing journey. And the more we are able to grow and share about our experience, the more other twin survivors might realize, hey, wow, this hardcore stuff that I'm going through is actually legit, and I'm not on my own, and I'm not going crazy. So the more of us that are able to affirm ourselves and each other in our journeys, the more I believe that twin survivors will be able to find their own courage to do their own healing journey as well. So thank you for being here for yourself and for other twin survivors, but also thank you for being here because as you heal your journey, there's also something really beautiful in a way that you can bring to your twin or to your siblings' journeys too. And there can be something really beautiful about that. And something about that, just to mention, is that we can all be in different parts or stages of that journey. So some of us, we may be feeling a lot of anger towards our twin. We may be feeling a lot of hurt, like why did they reject us? Or why didn't they want to stay with us? Or we might be feeling a lot of guilt around, why was it me that got to live? Why not them? Sometimes we can also be quite preoccupied by death or thinking about what happens after life or wanting to step into the world that our twin or sibling has already ventured into. And it can be so important for us to remain in this plane, on this journey, to finish our purpose and our challenge. At this point, I'd also like to mention that I'm so sorry for the loss that you have encountered and experienced. It's so often so easy to gloss over or to tend to the technical aspects of our twin survivor journey. But it's so important also to acknowledge that this loss is a very real loss, and not a lot of the time are we given this acknowledgement from the world or people close to us, or even people that should have been close to our twin. So I just want to let you know that if any feelings of grief or sorrow or anger or frustration or deep loneliness arise, it's completely normal given the circumstances. And at times, I'm sure it can feel incredibly overwhelming. So if at any point during these next 5 days you notice yourself feeling overwhelmed or in need for a bit of extra support, please do feel free to reach out. The best way to do this is to send me an email. Alternatively, you could try send me a personal message on Facebook or Instagram, but I'm not sure when you might be listening to this recording, so some of those avenues may no longer be available depending on the circumstances. So email is always best. There are people out there who believe your experience and your journey, and we want you to thrive, and we want you to feel heard, and we want you to feel acknowledged. And so it's so important also to give yourself the space to acknowledge that your loss is very real. Some of us perhaps have moved through this loss or are dealing with other intricacies from our journey. So if you're not in this phase of experiencing the loss or the overwhelm, that is okay too. Each of us are at different stages of the journey, or each of us encounters different challenges along the way. And so I just really want to encourage you, and my sense is if you're here, you've probably been through a lot of stuff, and you probably haven't always had the kind of support you've needed. And yeah, just to encourage you on your journey and just send you so much love, warmth, and respect. At this point, I'd like to invite you to a brief centering exercise. We've tended to a number of quite deep scenarios or challenges, and sometimes it can be helpful just to regroup, check in with the body, see how we're feeling. So sometimes we lean into a collapse state, let's call that 0, and then we could shift up to a really relaxed and perhaps attentive state, let's say a number 5, and then we could shift on through to a number 10 state where we're quite anxious, maybe a little bit wired. If you've done part 1 with me, you may have already encountered some of these scales, but the one we're tending to now pays attention to where some of us might need a bit of upregulation if we're feeling particularly low, or where some of us might be feeling a bit of a need for some down regulation because we're generally feeling quite wired and we need some calm. But this scale is kind of sensing into where it is that we are and how it is that we can arrive at a more relaxed but attentive space. So taking a deep breath in, and on the out breath, welcoming you to focus on your feet, planting them on the floor. So that means just gently feeling them on the ground if you can. Remembering that all of us have different abilities and different relationships with our bodies. So just adapting each of these exercises to your specific needs, your specific abilities, and your specific challenges. So going back to the feet, feeling them on the ground. Maybe you're feeling your bum on the chair. Maybe you're leaning back against the chair, getting a sense of what part of your body is receiving some external support right now. Maybe you are wearing a nice cozy blanket to give you some comfort. just sensing into some of those edges of the body. And then we just have a think about the pace of our breath. Is this a usual regular rhythm that we breathe? Are we noticing our heart rate at all? Are we feeling a warmth or a coldness on our skin? Taking another breath in, lengthening the spine as if there's a string attached to the top of our head, allowing us to elevate and to extend and to rise a little bit further than we maybe normally would be. And then on the out breath, softening, allowing the muscles behind our eyes to soften, allowing the muscles behind or the muscles of our jaw to soften, letting the tongue drop to the base of the mouth, welcoming softening between the ribs, the abdomen, the hips, the knees, the ankle, and the feet joint too. If your eyes are open, perhaps giving a chance to pay attention to the peripheral vision. What do you see on the outside edges? So often in this day and age where we spend a lot of time on screens or focusing on little details, we don't get as much opportunity to notice what's happening in the periphery of our eyes, of our vision. And then perhaps looking at something in the room or out the window, something that makes you smile. Or perhaps, if you can't see anything, thinking about somebody that makes you smile. And maybe shaking out your arms and legs a bit to get some energy back into the system. Maybe giving a gentle stretch, maybe a yawn. Whatever it is you need to bring yourself back to the moment where we can continue with day 1 of the Twin Survivor Toolkit Part 2. At this point you may want to take a sneaky peek at your workbook, and you might see there that there's a scale for you to mark how you are right now, from 0 through to 5 through to 10. If you like, you can jot this down, or you can simply continue on with the recording. So let's talk a little bit about what we might cover in part 2. A beautiful way that I've recently encountered when it comes to tending to relationships is to get to know how I relate in a sort of metaphorical, seasonal way. While I've encountered the theme of cycles and seasons when it comes to exploring my life, I would just like to give a shout out to Mark Welsh and the team at Embodiment Unlimited for supporting me in delving deeper into this exploration. They're doing some wonderful embodied stuff across there at Embodiment Unlimited. So if anybody's interested in looking into different ways of tending to life with embodied explorations, they're a great place to start. And also a great place for current practicing therapists to explore different embodied tools to bring into their practice. So definitely give them a little look-see if you're interested. But this is my take on it, and I've infused some tools from my own dance movement psychotherapy training to combine and also enhance what I'm able to offer here. And also I've lent into the Twin Survivor theme alongside some of the tools that they've brought into my awareness. So exciting stuff, and I'm super excited to be able to share it with you too. It's been a massive impact in my own healing journey, on my own sort of twin survival experience. most of us will have experienced 1 or 2, maybe even 4 seasons, depending on where in the world we live. But for this example, we're going to tend to the 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And so as we've been kind of taught to know it, each season tends to last 3 months and comes along with many sort of natural signs from nature. At this point, I'd like to invite those of you who want to explore this with their body. So as I describe the different seasons, you may want to stand up and walk through the room or create different statues or poses that represent each of the seasons in your life. And as you're doing that, perhaps you can track the shifts you notice in your body. Perhaps you notice the speed changing, or your posture changing, or your movements changing, or the upward, downward facing posture that you might be holding, noticing the amount of tension or strength or relaxation you may be holding in your body, and also paying attention to your breath. So whether you choose to move and walk through each different season or create a pose at the beginning, the end of each season, it's up to you. After we've gone through this, you may want to take some time to reflect and notice what you experienced in your workbook so that you can look back on that maybe at a later stage and notice some shifts that you may encounter as time continues. So let's dive into exploring the seasons. You're welcome to pause at any point to deepen your exploration, or just listen if you prefer, or perhaps draw as we go through the seasons. All right. So spring can be an emerging from winter and emerging from hibernation. It can be all about sprouting, new life, bright colors, leaning into a time where there might be more light, more contrast between light and darkness. And then from spring, we might move into summer, where the colors and the flowers may begin to blossom. And there'll be even more spectrum of colors in the world around us, perhaps more hours of sunlight, perhaps even a greater sense of warmth from the sun around us. Maybe summer comes with afternoon thunder showers. Maybe it comes with other signs, depending on where in the world you are. And we lean into autumn, where we actually take the time to harvest the things we've grown in the summer, where we start to prepare for the winter, where we start to store things up for cold, perhaps fruitless days. Welcome in those shorter days, longer nights. And as we lean deeper through the autumn into the change of colors, the change of colors in the leaves, the change of temperature in the air, perhaps a different kind of sensation on our skin when we're outside. We might be wearing different kinds of clothing that impact our movement. And we continue gently into winter, where we then notice a sudden chill, perhaps picking up or ramping up. Things become colder. Perhaps for some of us feel fresher, and the colors shift again into tones, less spectrum of color, maybe even shorter days, even longer nights, perhaps cozy gatherings, maybe even some hibernation happening, and giving space for death as well, allowing the leaves to disintegrate into the earth, to nourish the soil. There's something so important about allowing space for winter and realizing that it is part of the spring as well to come. So leaning from winter into spring again. Let's pause here a moment as we step out of this exploration of the different seasons and their cycles. At this point, you might want to shake it off if you've been moving or drawing. Give yourself a bit of a stretch or a hug or a deep breath in. Just to step out of that exploratory role and into a more reflective space where you can perhaps jot some ideas down. So at this point you might want to press pause and take some time to do that before we continue, or you may feel ready to carry on with the recording. And so as we talk about those seasons, we will in each day tend to spring on one day, summer on the next, autumn on the next, and then winter before we finish off with the summary of noticing our patterns and tendencies. And so as we have our patterns of seasons, people around us have their patterns of seasons, and the world around us has its own patterns of seasons and cycles. And so as we experience our own different seasons and cycles, it can be so helpful to note and to notice the seasons and cycles around us, both in other people and in the world. We may already begin to start to notice some patterns arising just when I mention the different seasons. So for example, in my case, I am an absolute spring lover. I absolutely love the spring, but I tend to go from height of spring crashing straight into winter and hibernation, going back into thriving spring and diving back straight into a deep, dark winter. This metaphor of exploring the different seasons has really helped me to grow some summer into my life and to grow some autumn and some harvesting into my life as well. So I hope that this journey can also provide you with the opportunity to notice where your patterns may be and perhaps why your patterns may be that way, so that you can make more conscious choices, or perhaps even offer yourself more compassion to how your patterns unfold, so that you can welcome in the realization that you actually have the power to respond to your patterns and to say, okay, I'm going to accept them and celebrate them, or maybe I fancy a bit of exploring something different. Giving ourselves permission and also challenging ourselves to say, yeah, I have the power to extend my summer, to welcome in an autumn. Yeah, so this is just the introductory day to part 2 of the toolkit. If you like, and if it feels relevant to you, you can begin to start exploring what the connection is, perhaps, between how you tend to cycles and seasons and your twin survivor experience as well. So I thought it might be helpful to share a little bit of some of my observations. You don't need to let them cloud your experience or add any projection onto your experience because of my insights. Really allow yourself to lean into what it is that is true for you. But it can be really helpful to just hear a little bit of how the two might be related. This is a little snapshot into my encounter. So I tend to do 3 months of life and then have a big shift somehow in how things unfold, and then do another 3 months a different way. And so for me it's quite poignant because that signals to me there's a bit of spring going on there. And each season tends to last 3 months. Yeah, being able to be aware of this has also at one point led me to the link of perhaps this ties in with my sense of how long my twin was with me. And I've always had a strong sense of about 12 weeks or 3 months. I don't know why, and I don't know if this matches up any lived experience of the pregnancy that I was a part of. for me, it's really helpful to notice that a lot of my relationships, the first 3 months can be quite intense, where there can be quite a strong connection built up, and often something happens, whether it's out of my own doing or something that's just quite synchronistic. The relationship suddenly ends or suddenly disappears, or one of the two of us leaves that part of the world, or something changes drastically that there is no longer that connection or any room for communication. This has also given me insight into how I can tend to, offer compassion to, and bring some reparation to my experience of loss or my fears that might arise around the 3-month, 12-week timing of things. So it can be helpful for you to just sense into or have an awareness of the patterns. And just to note that in my case, it may just be entirely coincidental. I'm very aware that as I grow on my healing journey, that sometimes I've become too attached to certain things or hang on to certain ideas that I've had that are definitely true for my story. And as I grow with wisdom, I sometimes realize, perhaps it wasn't really like that. And so it's been helpful for me to give myself permission to name where I'm at currently, but also knowing that that might shift and change as my wisdom and as my healing journey grows. Some of us might not have a sense of when our twin may have passed, and for some of us it might be something we want to know, something we'll never know, something we'll always doubt, and for others of us it might not matter. Maybe it's not important. But that doesn't mean that looking at the seasons won't be helpful for us when it comes to relating to the world around us. So it might be helpful today just to jot down intuitively what seasons you feel drawn to most. You can spend more time on that if you want, but just jot something down and then have compassion with yourself as that unfolds or perhaps shifts and changes as we go through the rest of this toolkit. Okay, I'll leave that with you to ponder and explore. So we've briefly touched on cycles and seasons, and if you'd like to go ahead to your workbook now, it can be helpful just to jot down or note where it is you think you are usually drawn to. Is it the beginning, the springtime, or the commitment, the continuation, the summertime, or the harvest, the enjoyment, the giving and receiving, the letting go part? Or is it the saying goodbye, the relaxing, the allowing a pause? Getting a sense of where on that sort of scale of things you feel most drawn to, and perhaps where on the scale of things you tend to think you might need a bit more time exploring to support your growth and development going forward. So with each of these exercises, the idea is to gain awareness so that we can have more choice or be more conscious about our options, so that if we want to decide how we'd like to move ahead going forward, we have a bit of a clearer picture. So allow yourself to engage with these exercises as is most useful for you. If you want to jot something down, if you want to draw something, if you feel you want to move through it again, feel welcome to do so. So we're now leaning into the winter part of day 1 of the Twin Survivor Toolkit part 2. And I want to send so much thanks and gratitude your way for joining me on this journey. Remember, you are welcome to offer comments or share insights, and also to reach out for support by sending me a message or email if you would like. Okay, so look forward to seeing you tomorrow on day 2 of the Twin Survivor Toolkit part 2. Much love and respect. Goodbye.